All right. Yeah, she's very positive. That's good. I'm on YouTube right now. Hello, YouTube. Hey, David. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Diamond.
Hi.
Let's give everybody a couple minutes. Okay. Hello, everybody. Still a couple more people waiting to get in.
Hello, Professor.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
You know, whenever I just get started, the doorbell starts ringing. So let me let a couple people in before we jump in. I think that's just about everybody. All right. You know, I do want to start right off with the handout because, you know, here we are, we're in the final stretch. So I want to tell you, you know, as precisely as I can, what it is that I have in store for everybody, right? So let's just let me do some screen sharing. All right. So a couple things. So first off, I want you to notice that the handout here says 2 required classes remaining. And, you know, that's going to be a somewhat flexible thing. You know, I want to tell you why I say that. The 8th and the 10th, right? So that would be next week. So I want to actually give you a peek at this. Here's a calendar. 1 second there. Okay. So the 8th next week, the 10th next week, and then the following week is exam week. You know, we don't really have an exam. We have a final project, and that final project's due on the 10th, right? So I'm exploring whether we're going to meet at all during exam week. I'll keep you posted. And if we do, that's going to be the 15th, and it would be extra stuff, you know, stuff that might interest you, and I'll let you know how to handle it. I may consider that optional attendance, right? So these are the official part of the semester that takes us right up to the end of the class. So I just wanted to be very clear about it. That's our agenda. Now, I want to be even clearer because, you know, here we are kind of wrapping up the material. So what I want to do today is help people get a start on the final project. And my goal is to do that both today and next class as well. And we'll see what I want to do really with the very last day, which is the 10th. And I'll keep you posted. You know, right now I want to see how it goes both today and on Tuesday. So today, Tuesday, are devoted to working on the final project, which is challenging for a lot of people. I want to add something though. Like, let's say, you know, one person already handed in and she did a fine job. Shu Ying, well done. I already saw it. And she did a long one too. You know, it was like a bunch of sentences, you know, more scene thinking than anything else. So what do I do for her at this stage when we're all just going to get started? She's already done. So Shu Ying actually wrote you an email, and I wasn't planning on saying this publicly. He was going to make people race through their projects. But if you do finish early, since my plan is to devote today and Tuesday to sort of an assisted lab environment, you know, today will be a little bit more hands-on for me, help get people off the ground. But once people are off the ground, next week I'm going to kind of wait for questions. It's sort of the goal on Tuesday anyway. If you finish early, Tuesday becomes unnecessary, really. I don't see why you would come, and I will mark you present. There will be no, you know, impact on grades at all. So let me just sort of clarify that, right? We are working on the final. If you do your best, final's done. Today's not likely for most people, really, but it is quite possible that you'll finish before Tuesday. Tuesday, I'm going to work on it in class. If you're already done and you did your best, you don't have to come. There may be a small group on Tuesday. I would ask for everybody, though, who does finish early to please get a look at Tuesday's handout to see if I make any announcements about the last day of class, right? Or if I make any announcements about exam week. Now, I got to be very frank. What I usually do during exam week is throw in something extra, something that another multimedia subject that's not on the syllabus, that's not requested by the school. And I think some other teachers do that too. And I almost always make that optional attendance, right? This semester, because we're online, I'm doing things a little bit differently. But there you have it. Today we're starting the final. Same thing on Tuesday. If you finish early, you don't have to come. Check the handout though to see what's happening next Thursday. Don't forget that, right? Does anybody have any questions for me so far? Now, Shu Ying, I got to know you a little bit. So like, I know you're not the type to take me up on an offer like that. But again, you are free to go. We're going to repeat stuff that you have obviously learned. I know you enjoy this, so if you feel like sticking around, you're also very welcome to stay. And I'm taking attendance. Let me get back to that handout. Again, guys, if I don't see you waving your hand or anything, just turn on your mic and shout it out, right, if you have a question for me. All right. I want you to, it says, look, because I updated, I should say, all the homework for this particular class only a couple days ago. I think that was Monday. So in fact, I got 2 more pieces from people that I graded today. But I didn't look over everything. On Monday, I did. So anything you sent to me by Monday has been graded. I'm still accepting late work, but you should check, when you have a chance. Take a look on Blackboard, see how you did. If you have any questions for me, I'm going to ask you, please email me at this address, right? You're much more sure to get a prompt answer from me than my very crowded BMCC email address. This is just for you guys, the hotline. So anyway, these are up to date as of Monday. So look, if you do have late work, I got to be really frank. It's the video project, right? Few people miss the video project. We spent a healthy amount of time in the video project. We even started it in the class, kind of like we're about to do with the last project. But a few people didn't get it in. And that has a high impact. If you got low grades on the other 3, like 70, that's 210 divided by 4. That's a failing grade. It comes out under a 60. So the only way to pass without the video is to get really high grades on the other 3 major projects. If there's some reason why any of you cannot do the video, some tech problem or something like that, please write me a thoughtful email. I may be able to offer you an alternative project. I may be able to. It's a multimedia class. I have some freedom, right? But if you just don't do it and ignore it, this offer is not going to remain open, right? So again, check Blackboard. If you have late work, it has to go in the late folder. Where we go, regarding late work, just go to this link, which is our usual folder. In it, you'll see the late folder. Just open that up, pop it in there. All right. So it's Adobe Animate. That's it for the rest of the semester. One last time though, if I do an extra class, what really is frosting on the cake during exam week, right? It may be in Adobe Illustrator, right? And I would let everybody know in advance because it is part of the Creative Cloud. It's my #1 pick because it's an incredibly useful program that may be a little bit underserved for some of our majors, but it's wildly powerful. It's something I use a lot. So I'll keep you posted about that. But as it stands, it's Adobe Animate. I want to jump ahead though. And again, I do invite interruptions. So if you need to interrupt me, put on that mic. Right now I'm looking at the handout. I want to draw your attention to this because I'd like for you to make this decision now. So here's your 4 choices about what you should say. And I would like you to include the author. So you notice each has a long dash, the name of the author. So I want to repeat this even though I said it the other day. If you're a little nervous about this project for any reason, you should do the first one because it's short. Just try to make it look as good as you can. If this is done with elegance, it could get a really good grade. If this strikes you as too easy, you want to push harder, please note that each of these is longer than the last. And even for me, and I've done a lot of Kinetic Type, longer is more intense. It really is. It's the same skill set. I don't want to keep pointing out Ying. She chose to go with the longest one. Did a good job too. You have to figure out like how to work it out. Should one sentence just disappear and the next second move on? You know, I don't know if any of you ever heard Martin Luther King's very famous speech. A lot of people think of it as the "I Had a Dream" speech. And it's one of the most replayed speeches in the United States. Uh, by the way, it's an amazing speech. It really is not hype. The man was incredibly brilliant and he knew how to be inspiring. It's a very long speech, though. Very few people have heard the whole thing. Boy, would I dread to have to do kinetic type for that whole speech. The longer, the harder it is. So again, please know yourself. This one's not so bad. This one's getting a little intense, and this last one's definitely the most intense. The only one that actually has sentences. 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. So you're gonna need to choose today, because this is what my goal is. I'm gonna choose something else, because I don't want anybody copying exactly what I do, right? I'm gonna run through it like I always do with different words. If you've been comfortable, because look, we kind of did this twice before, you know, you could move at any speed. If you're uncomfortable, you have a choice. You could conceivably run through it one more time with me with the same dummy text I'm going to use. I think for most of you, that would be a bad choice because, you know, here's a chance to start the final, right? So you're going to have to choose a phrase now. And if you get started, who knows? You know, I wouldn't expect to finish it in an hour and a half, but, you know, you can get a big chunk done. Are you guys all following me? So I give you a lot of choices, right? I hope they're not too many. So if you're intending on starting the final right now, I want to tell you what I would recommend. Well, one, you should prepare a folder. You know, it won't make or break anything, but you'll know everything's there. If anyone gets overexcited and they want to figure out how to add music, then they're like, oh, but I already have a GIF. Wouldn't you like it all in one folder? You know, maybe I'll squeeze in how to bring in a photo like I'd said I might. So you might want to make a folder now. All right. The FLA is going to be called this, right? Just this, the FLA. But you're going to be delivering to me an output. So this is the Adobe Animate file. I don't want this. I want either a GIF or a SWIF, and we'll go over both. So say you have a folder, you're going to open up Animate, you'll save a file by this name, and then you'll get busy. I'm going to get busy in a couple minutes, but I just want to say a little bit more. Regardless of which one I choose, the first challenge is, how do I break down my blocks? So I want to say something to you about that. Hopefully I could see if I've got something handy. I really should have prepared something for you for this particular thing. There we go. So, you know, this one from the other day has 3 blocks, but notice 2 of them are multiple word. Here's 2. That moves as a unit. So when I say as a block, it's literally in one box, and the only way it could move is together, these 2 words. These 2 words also share a block. So one of the first decisions you have to make is, what does the finish file look like? Don't do each separate word. There's no use in animating the word is, or even it's, by itself. That could take a little bit of thought. All right. So I'll tell you what I'm going to suggest then. I'm going to be a good example. And what's this? That's from a different class on there. Sorry about that, guys. I just taught right before you. Sorry. Illustrator stuff. I'm going to make a folder on my desktop. This would be a great place to start. Since you're not going to deliver the folder to me, you can call it anything you want. So I'm going to call it MMP100 final. This is for you. You could leave it open if you like. Then I'm going to suggest that you open Animate. Mine keeps asking about this font. I'm just going to skip it. Cover file. No, I don't need that. All right. So I'm going to click Create New, or I could do File Menu New. It's virtually the same. I just want to make a point. It's a little clearer here than on the splash window. We've been using this size. They call it standard, and I'm going to use it today. If you'd like to use something wider, more to like your TV set, I'd recommend this one, HD. It is bigger, but if you're in the mood to stretch out, you could try this one. Quite a bit bigger and narrower. In either case, I'm using standard and a frame rate of 24. I click Create. I want to show you guys something. I often just put a box nearby with the quote that I want to use to help me think if I don't have something to look at. I better delete this though, because it'll mess up my layers. Or I'm going to keep it there only briefly. So I'm going to write, all we are saying is give peace a chance. Right? And famously by John Lennon. It's funny that it didn't make my list of peace quotes. So this one is not one of the acceptable ones, which is why I'm using it now. Now, if you think that's going to help you having it nearby, pick your quote and do the same thing. Drag the type box right off stage, just type it in. It's probably a mistake to think you want to do this in your head. I'm just letting Kevin in. All right. Now, that's not the breakdown though, because this would make weird 3 lines. Who wants to animate all we are saying is, so just giving me a chance to think. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this in 5 lines. Mine's going to be kind of big, right? So I'm going to do, let me just think. I'm going to do all we are, let me see. All we are saying is give peace a chance. So I'm going to do something like this. All we're saying, I just want to show you, is give peace a chance. All right. I would kind of like the word peace on its own line though. So I think I'm going to do it more like this. Right. So I'm just pointing out, this isn't obvious, is it? You know what I mean? This is 5 lines. I'm going to leave them all on screen. And this is just for me to look at while I figure it out. All right. If you like that idea, make yourself a box, type your stuff in it, and just click where you want to hit return if you want to try different line breaks to help you think. All right. Then we're ready for the next step. The next step is making those blocks, right? So you can't just type wildly, they're all going to move as one unit. That won't be much of an animation, right? So I'm going to make my top line, which has got a lot of words, but I'm going to stick with it. Okay. So I'm going to get my type tool again. And this time I'm going for the real deal here. Let me just move some stuff around. And I'm just going to click. And I'm going to write. And I have to decide, do I want capitals, lowercase? Do I want to type like regular sentences? So far, I'm going to go like this. All we are saying. Now, since that's one block, I'm going to get my black arrow and deselect it. For the moment, that's done. So I deselect in between. I get the black arrow and I click off. I get the type tool and I click again for the next line. And I'm going to move these around. So I'm going to write is give. All we're saying is give. I think this needs a comma. I just select as I go. These are separate units, you could see. I'm going to get the type tool and I'm going to set up peace I'm going to go with caps for that. I get the black arrow and I deselect. And I return to the type tool. I'm going to write a chance. And notice I'm not laying it out yet. I'm just getting my blocks ready. I get the black arrow and I click off. Get the type tool and I'm going to write my little dash. John Lennon. All right. I'm ready to actually start designing a bit, right? You know, I want to say something about the backgrounds. There are 3 choices off the top of my head. One is a nice, flat, simple color, and I'm going to start that way. Another one is a box that could actually change color while the movie plays. And if I don't do that today, I think I will do it next week. So a flat color or an actual box with its own layer that can change color. That's the third plan would be a photo back there. I don't think I'd go with a peace sign because it would be hard to read text over a peace sign. You know, it might sound like a great idea, but it won't look good behind anything. Peaceful sky, you know, sunrise, possibly. Right now, I'm going to go with a flat color just to get started. So I'm going to deselect. When you click on the stage, the properties palette always gives you this feature here, stage with a white box, so you could actually pick a stage color. I'm going to go with a color that actually works for my demonstrations, not just to look good, because there's some features that don't show up on blue, so I'm trying to avoid blue. I'm going to stick with this. Now I got to move these around, and I want to remind you, the first step that we did last time was we designed the way the text will look at the end. It's weird to start at the end, but that's the conclusion. That's the goal. The text is going to move all over the place, but it's going to arrive at something good looking that looks like a poster. So I'm going to take a little bit of time and make some suggestions about that. I'm going to feature the word peace. So I think I'm going to move these up. And again, you listen, folks, all of you, key in as you need to. You know, if you're feeling very independent, go off on your own, keep an ear on me in case I do something you want to see, right? If you're not secure at all, then just go through the steps with me as best you can, right? You're trying to make this work for you. So I just made the separate blocks and now I'm going to start playing with them. Here's the word peace, and I'm going to get this tool, which I use a lot, called the free transform tool. And it lives in Photoshop and in Illustrator. It's all over the place. So letter Q will get you there as a shortcut. I'm going to make the word peace big, but I don't want it to distort. So I'm going to hold down Shift and make it really big. And I didn't mention font. So maybe we should take care of size and font at the same time. So I used the free transform tool. I held Shift down to make sure it wouldn't distort as I enlarged it. I happen to really like this font. So I'm probably going to come back to it, but I do want to remind you, you would come here. You could either look at the samples on the right to see what they'd look like. Right? Or you could highlight the current font and use the down arrow to cruise through a bunch. I have a lot of fonts because you know, I'll often download fonts for different purposes and keep them. So you might have fewer, I don't know. I'm not going to recommend a font. That's definitely part of the project. So I'm choosing one. Some fonts have underneath them the rest of a family. You know, font families mean they're designed to look good together. They're usually about different line weight, like bold, for example. This is a big font. It comes in all different weights, which makes it really useful. I think I'm going to leave color for a little bit later. All right, this is giving me some ideas about what I want from the rest. I'm going to start at the top here. And I have this idea that I'd like the larger phrases to be the same width as the word piece. I'm using the shift key and I'm eyeballing to see if it matches the word piece. I'm curious whether is give, which is a weird phrase I'm not totally happy with. Would look good that wide? No, that's going to look bizarre, right? So definitely not going to do that. I'm looking for something that I find appealing. And I'm going block by block. I know I wanted to feature the word piece. That was the easy part. So I got a rough concept here, which is most of the phrases are going to be as wide as the word piece. This one didn't look good that way. And I'm not quite happy with it yet. So I'm going to play with it a little bit. And I think I'm going to try a lighter font, a lighter typeface for it. Not all fonts have that many choices. Things that are too light are a little hard to see when you animate them. But while we're looking at this, I want to point out how important it is, because no matter how good your animation is, it won't look good if it arrives at poor design. Don't be shy, guys. We know each other. You know I'm friendly. Anybody have any questions about this? Separate blocks, getting it to look good. You know your animation is going to arrive at this layout by the time you're done. All right, color. So again, it would be easiest to really pick color meaningfully when you're sure of your own background, right? So right now I'm going to stick with the yellow background for simplicity's sake. And we can see how that would be affected later on if I choose to do a changing background, something that moves back there, or any of the many options like a photograph. Or we'll try to squeeze that in today as I promised. Right now, I'm going to think about the color for these. By the way, I have the black arrow or the transform tool. They can both select things. But if you want to select multiple objects, click one, then add shift and keep shift down. And that'll let you select multiple objects, if you have a motive for that. This would be the right place to be picky. I changed my mind about my original strategy. The artist's prerogative. Until I get something I'm feeling a little more convinced of. Whenever you feel ready, save to your folder. Now, if you are saving loose to the desktop, it won't break anything. It just might be harder to find stuff. So just save wherever you're going to save. I'm going to go ahead, though, and save with the correct name right away. So I want to get a quick peek at the handout. I could always change names later. It's not like critical, but it might make life a little easier to get things right. So MMP100-final.first last name. I'm going to go do that. So I'm saving it. MMP100-final-first name last name. And I'm going to make believe that Jimi Hendrix is in my class. Why? Just because I love Jimi Hendrix. I'd rather be in his class. MMP100-final-jimmyhendrix.fla. I'm going to find my folder. And I'm going to save it in there. Again, save the way you're comfortable. Just be sure you could find it. And you use your real name. Look, I want to tell you something, though. When I actually do this, one of my favorite times I ever did this was for a lobby. It was a big lobby, and they had 4 really big screens next to each other to make one massive, massive screen. And it was fun because I got to make text go from one box into the next box, which on my screen would be David's. But I got to do that on the big screen, and it was fun. I had to spend a very long time on this stage to make sure it was all going to be worth it. All right, now we're ready to make the symbols. So I want to back up a little bit. That word symbol is, as you already picked up on, different for Adobe Animate than it is in the regular world. We're not talking about symbolism. We call a symbol an object that lives in the library. There's 3 kinds of symbol. The one we're using is called a graphic symbol, and it's at the heart of tweening. Classic tweening requires that we make symbols. So each block you made is going to be turned into a symbol. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. I want you to click your first block when you're ready, right on the text, and then you either control click if you're on a Mac, or right click on Windows, control click or right click, and choose convert to symbol. Give it a name. We're using graphic symbols. And click OK. So I have to do that 4 more times. So if you missed it, you'll see it in a moment. But they should be showing up in the library, which is on your right. It shares a slot with the properties palette. So there it is. And click the next one. And I control click or I right click. And I'm working my way down. I'm being very careful that if it overlaps with other text, that I really do have the one I mean to. Because sometimes when they overlap, they misbehave. So you really have to do each one. I want to mention something about this. There's certain kinds of tweening that let you skip this step, but it creates a real problem even if it lets you do it. And I want to give you an example. Let's say I've had my text moving all over the place. That means there's going to be a lot of keyframes. So say that text is in 10 keyframes. That means it's been repeated 10 times. What if I wanted to change the font? If I didn't make a symbol, I'd have to go to all 10 copies one at a time and change the font. But if I make a symbol and I want to change anything about it, I just double click it in the library. Now I am in symbol editing mode. I can make any change that I want. Up in the top left is an arrow. It'll take me back to the movie, and every single copy of this text would have changed. I don't like that, so I'm going to see if it lets me Command Z out of there. Let me just simplify it. I've been saying that you have to make symbols. Small exaggeration. Do you want to make symbols? Absolutely. There's 100 reasons why it's better. All right. Once you got all your symbols down, right? So you did your layout, you turned them all into symbols. It's time to get a look at the timeline. The timeline has everything in one black keyframe in frame 1. The layer is called layer 1, and this is not going to help at all. Each of these things is supposed to move by itself, right? So that basically means each one of these is going to have to be on its own layer. We've been using a feature called distribute to layer that I kind of love, right? It makes this complex step really easy. So what you have to do is select all the text. I would get the black arrow for this. One way is to press nearby and drag until it's come over everything, even a little, then everything's selected. That's the black arrow press and drag method. It's a good method. But if there's drawings nearby, you might be bumping into those or other words. So some people prefer the shift method. You click one, then you hold down shift and keep it down while you click the rest. Be careful that you actually get them. Small word, by the way. If you're having a blue background, it's probably hard to see those boxes. Since the boxes are blue, it's a bit of a struggle, but I'm sure you could work it out. I'm wondering if I could change that color. I can change that color. I just never need to. Hey, is anyone having a hard time seeing the boxes around your text? You know, because you got a blue background. If so, please let me know. I'll show you a trick. There's a way to fix it. I don't want to waste people's time, so. All right. Once you've selected them all, we're going to ask Animate to move each of these blocks to their own layer. So they have to be selected. Then you're ready for the Modify menu. Modify, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. This is clearly spelled out in my handout today and last class. It's hard to remember. Modify, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. And then go have a look at your layers. Now, what you're seeing is a layer for each block named after the text and one extra layer. Now, for some of us, the extra layer is blank. In other words, it's got a hollow circle. The keyframe is white, meaning there's no art in it. That was layer one, and all your artwork moved off of layer one. In my case, layer one has a black keyframe because of this that I forgot about, and I just don't need it anymore. So if that's what happened to you, that's fine. If yours looks like this, you got a hollow keyframe, same thing. I want you to throw out that layer. Any layer you don't need should be thrown out. If there's a hollow keyframe, throw it out. If it's the original dummy text or that little sample, throw it out. How do you do it? Just highlight the layer. Notice the trash can above on the timeline. And just click it. So we got the artwork on the layers. Great. That means we're almost ready to animate. There's symbols. They're on the right layers. We threw out anything extra. There's one more thing, though, that I don't like about those layers. They're in a weird order. You know, mine look upside down. You know, the stage looks right, so my audience isn't going to care. But for me, as the engineer, as the artist, it's confusing. So I'm going to change that. If you look at my layers, I'm going to take all we are saying and drag it up to the top. I'm going to get my next line and drag it up. I'm imitating what I see on the stage. I'm going to drag piece up. I know we all have different text. So if these are in the same order, top down, as these are top down, it'll be easy to understand what you're doing. Good time to save. Before we get involved with time and motion, right, I want to say something to you. The final projects will only score big if you did something that I didn't teach you exactly. You know, something about it. I don't know. Could be anything, right? There's some people figure out how to use sound. Others will figure out how to use photos, which will probably help with a little bit. Maybe your fonts are beautiful. Maybe you're just using shapes in some beautiful way in the background. It's about some sense of adventure, right? Maybe yours are moving very differently than mine are moving. Did all these slides, you know, but maybe that's enough of the slides. I don't know. So I'm going to stick with the steps from last class and add a little, right? Again, if there's something you really want that you can imagine, try to mention it. Maybe I could understand, maybe I could accommodate it. Right now, I want to talk about pure timing, right? You don't hear a whole sentence at once, right? And this is a visual parallel to that. So I want to have the block show up one at a time. I'm going to make them take a little longer than I did last class and give each one 20 frames before the next one shows up. So all we are saying comes first. And that's going to stay where it is in frame one, that keyframe. But what I want to do, actually, before I change the timing, I want to do one preliminary step. I want to lengthen the timeline for everybody, right? So I'm going to tell it all some random number of seconds. So let me just think for a second. I'm going to need at least 80 frames myself, right? If you want to start with 80, you can. It's easy to add frames or take them away later, but it helps to have a chunky timeline to start. Some of you remember F5. F5 was the key that adds time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head out to frame 80. There's a scroll bar down here, by the way, at the bottom of the timeline. But touchpads let you just press and drag. When you frame 80, I want you to click right in the box under 80. That's for your top layer. And tap F5. Now my computer is a laptop, and it won't let me use F5 because it thinks I want to brighten my screen. So I have to tell it to function the way Adobe Animate wants. And I do that by holding down the function key. So we don't all need that, depends on your computer. I'm going to hold down my FN key, tap F5. I'm going to go straight down that column so that you see, notice right now only 2 of my layers are still alive. The others are way back in frame 1. So I got to go all the way down. So it's not F and 5, it's the top row of keys, the F keys. And now I see them all. So these all have a little over 3 seconds to live. I'm going to bring my playhead back to the beginning. I'm a little more ready for the timing now. Animators, because I know I have a few here or people heading that way. I want you to know that every time you do something again, you're going to do it a little differently. So if you do it for 10 years of doing it a little differently, you're going to get really good by then. If you think of a slightly smarter approach, something more efficient. We still good? No questions for me? Even people with cameras off? All right. Thank you for all the thumbs, drawings, and real. Okay. So, about the timing. Since I want each line to start one at a time, I'm going to let all we are saying, my top block here, stay there. But I'm going to come down to the next keyframe underneath it. That represents these 2 words. I'm going to press the keyframe once just to click it. That means I'm selecting it. And then I'm going to press and drag it over to frame 20. So I'm going to give it a little bit longer. So right now at the beginning, that sentence isn't there. I want to go down to the next keyframe for my 3rd layer down, my 3rd block. In my case, that's the word piece. I click the keyframe once. That's that black dot. Then I press and I drag it. And I'm going to go 20 frames further, out to 40. And if I can't reach, I'll just scroll over, press and drag it again. So each time I'm going back to the beginning, finding the next keyframe, and dragging it over. Don't let it go to the other layers. Keep it on its layer. I'm passing by 40 now. I'm going all the way out to 60. It gets a little clumsy, I'll admit. I'm going to do the last one, but I want to mention a cool feature. This version of Animate lets you zoom out of the timeline. And when you have a long timeline, it's helpful. So I want to show this to you. We did it a lot when we were doing Adobe Premiere. Way down here, I don't know if you could see this, way at the bottom, I could drag to the left to see all 80 frames at once. They're tiny. They're super tiny now. It's hard to work. But at least I'm doing without having to scroll around. This is too zoomed in. I'm talking about this down here, this little slider. If you drag to the left, you see your whole timeline. That might be helpful for a while. I don't know. I'm going to get the last one, John Lennon's name, and I'm going to drag it to the end for right now. So as I mentioned on Tuesday, this is actually an animation now. It's not very impressive, really, but it is an animation. You could play it by hitting return or enter. All right, so it's slower timing than last class, but it starts, all we're saying is give peace a chance. John Lennon. You know, when I finally realized that I should block out the timing before I do anything fancy, I was twice as good right away. I was in the habit of doing one phrase, getting to do whatever I want, and then move on to the next one. Doesn't really work as well. You know, people who, some of you are going to take animation with me, at some point we're going to make people walk. Some people map out where each step should be before they make the actual legs move to make sure that it matches a believable stride. But right now I'm thinking about simple timing, kind of like that. Well, since it's not interesting enough, I want them to do something. And I've been working with slides of all sorts. I think just because a lot of you done this twice with me, I'm going to make the slides a little bit more interesting. Here's the word all we are saying. And I want it to take 15 frames to slide in. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn on the tweening. There's different orders I can go in. I know they're symbols. I know they're all going to need classic tween turned on. This is probably a good time to do that. So I think I'm going to start with the top one. You do that from the timeline. I'm going to zoom in a bit. You click on the first keyframe and control click and say create classic tween. It gives you this purplish bar. I want to mention that don't turn tweening on if your keyframe is blank. It needs artwork, right? So the layer beneath it has a blank keyframe. I'm not going to turn it on from here. There's nothing there to move. It's empty. So I find its keyframe. It's black keyframe. So it says that a lot in my handout. Find the black keyframe, the one with the art in it, and turn on your classic tween. I'm going to keep going down layer by layer. Here's the next one. Find the black keyframe, control click or right click. Make sure you're choosing classic tween. The other one's good, but we haven't talked about it. So we're going to do classic tweening. This one I'm going to do the same. And this one I'm going to do the same. None of these are moving yet. They're just ready to move. And I do have a little bit of trouble, right? Some of you have similar trouble, some don't. My timelines, it's not long enough. I want this word to slide from somewhere, and I want it to take at least 15 frames to do it, but I only have 5. That means I'd have to extend this out at least to frame 90. And frankly, it doesn't matter if you estimate, you can go further. I'm going to go out to frame 95, I think, and just give myself some room. But I don't want anything to disappear. If I only did it on the one line I'm having an issue with, this one, everything else disappears. So if I'm going to stretch the timeline, I think I better do it on every layer. Some of you don't need this step because your timeline's long enough for the text you chose. But I did. That was preliminary. Nothing really cool. The coolest thing really was the layout. Then the simple timing was fairly cool. I turned on the classic tween because I can't do the slides without it. I need some kind of motion feature for that. And that's mostly tweening. We have classic tweening, we have motion tweening. Some people tween in code, they give it instructions. Man, I hate that. Shape tweening. There's a whole variety of options. All right. If you haven't saved in the last 5 seconds, the last 5-10 minutes, we better save. So file menu save or Command S, and it already knows where it lives. It already knows its name, so it only takes an instant. And if you crash, you won't have to worry. Hey guys, and listen, I want to share something with you before we start the slides. So since I teach, I hear all the crazy stories when finals come around. You know, so 10, 15 years ago, the dog ate my homework was the joke, right? Dog ate my homework. And then it was the dog ate my drive. You know, lately, it's a bunch of people saying my computer crashed, I lost everything. You know what? That has never happened to me. And I've worked on more computers than anybody here, probably, right? But it does happen if you don't save often. You know, and that's nobody's fault. The computer crashes, you haven't saved, you lost all that work. You know, if your computer crashes right now and you just saved, no big deal. Start it back up, open the file. All right. So I'm going to do some slides. Now I'm talking about my top phrase here. And the technique I shared with you involves F6ing to create a little bracket of frames. So I'm going to go 15 frames, and I want a keyframe on frame 1. Here it is. So I'm going out to frame 15 of that layer. And this is time for F6. F6 is wildly important. F6 is the smarter cousin of F5. F5 just adds filler, willy-nilly, no art. F6 copies the exact last keyframe. So it copies those words, color, font, position, everything. And so we need 2 for this to work. So on my top layer, I've got frame 1, and I just F6'd here. I needed my FN key again. The trick with this is once you get the bookends, it's the first one that you want to move. You want to move the artwork. The second one is where that phrase arrives, so that our final design looks the way we planned. If you accidentally move the second one, your design's going to be crazy, right? The second one anchors it where you want it to arrive. This one here is the arrival. The one before it, I could put anywhere. So today, I'm going to put it right up top. So it's going to slide down, and then everything else comes in. I want you to decide where to put it, though. There's so many options. I'm almost afraid of showing too many because we don't have that kind of time, but I'm going to mention something just for argument's sake. I'm going to Command Z that. Just want to make sure that's working. There we go. All right, so it's still in one place. I got the 2 keyframes. What else could I have done? I don't really like this, but I could do it. I could take this tool, because this tool rotates stuff. But it's got an axis point in the middle that tells it where to rotate from. So I could move that point here and then rotate it from there. That seems to work best if I move that axis point on the next block too. So this is the free transform tool, the way it rotates. I'm just going to move this over. So that's the rotation point. This one has it next to the letter A, but I rotated it. This one has it there too. It's almost like your elbow. You don't want your elbow moving around, right? Your forearm, your hand, but not your elbow. So this is what I'd get. more complicated. I'm a little hesitant about rotating text. I think I might get away with that though. All right, I'm going to go to my next phrase. My next phrase starts here, frame 20. Again, I've made this decision that I'm going to go at 15 frames for each of these private little animations. So here is 20. I'm going to go out to 35 of that layer and F6 it. So I'm always checking. You need at least 2 keyframes for tweening, for tweened animation, a minimum. Here I am, here I am. You know, I could keep going. I have a lot of keyframes. I'm not sure that works too well for text. Depends. All right, so I've got it anchored. It's not this one that I want to change. This is where it arrives. So I'm going to go into the earlier one and decide what I want to do with it. I'm really not sure. I think I'm just going to simply have it come from the right. Whenever you want to get a peek, you could always do Command Return. I find it a nice way to preview. I'm less distracted by all the details. Command Return on a Mac, Control Enter on Windows. I did 2 blocks. I'm about to do the third, but I do want to mention something about that preview. The preview produced a SWF.swf, but where is it? You know, we saw it, but where is it? If you've been saving to a folder, that's where it is. So I just want to prove it. Here's my folder, and here's my SWF. I don't know why it's making recover files for me all the time. I'm not going to deal with that. I could throw those out. This is the one I'm working on. This is the SWF I just made. I will accept SWFs for the final. So as simple as Command Return or Control Enter, but at least I didn't have to look for it this time because I made a folder. It just goes where the original lives. All right, I'm on the word piece here, and that definitely deserves some special treatment. I think that one's not going to slide at all. It's just going to enlarge. But I still want to go with that 15 frame idea. Each section's getting 15 frames. This one starts on 40, so I'd like it to finish on 55 in my case. I don't mind if you have different timing for yours, if each one is different. I'm doing this for clarity. So I made my 15 frame bracket, I like to call it, this segment, this animated segment. I know the second keyframe represents its arrival, so I'm going back to the beginning and deciding what I want to do. I'm going to use my transform tool, hold down Shift, and make the word piece very small. Second keyframe was the one there before, so it's full size. So now I got this going for me. I'm gonna watch that one more time. Let me let somebody got locked out. All right, I'm on my last line of the quote itself anyway, where it says a chance. I had is give slide from the right. The only thing that slid. I'm going to go ahead with that same idea. I have a chance slide in from the left. You could see that there's infinite decisions, right? It could come from anywhere, right? I'm trying to find some kind of groove. All right. So here's my layer for that last phrase. Here's its first keyframe, which is in 60. And since I'm going by 15s, I'm going to make my other keyframe 15 frames down. I'm going to F6 it. So I've got my bookends, my brackets. Second one is the arrival, the actual layout. The early one, it's up to me. So I'm going to take it from the left. And I always like to check. All I'm left with is the author's name. And that keyframe is currently in a random spot. So let's say it was on 80. And I wanted it to go 15 frames, 5, 10, 15. That would take me all the way out to the end here. So I'm going to F6 it. I want you to keep in mind, though, some things can be fast and others slow. If you ever wanted one of them to come in fast, give it 5 frames between the keyframes. That's less time. 10 is more time. The more frames, the longer it takes, the more time. More frames means more time, means slower. All right, this one here, I just want it to fade in. So here's the end, the way it should look. I'm going to go to the keyframe before it. And I want to show you something about the properties palette. To make something fade in, we use a feature on the properties palette, and it falls under a section called color effects, but it's not showing up. And that's because I need to click 2 things to use color effects, like transparency. I have to find the keyframe. So let's just say click the keyframe. But then I have to tell animate. I'm talking about the art. I'm not talking about layers. So I have to click the art. So I find the keyframe and click it. Then I click the art or words one time, and color effects showed up. That's really important. You have to find the keyframe first, click it, then click the artwork once. Then here's what we're after. I'm going to go to alpha, which means transparency. That's a little transparent, but I'm going all the way down to 0. I'm going to save what I have, show it to you. Then I want to add some stuff. Pretty happy with it so far. I want to say something about a looping animation. GIFs can loop. GIFs are really popular right now, most of us know, right? They're really good for short stuff like this. They don't do sound, but that doesn't hurt us in this case. And you have the choice whether it plays once or whether it keeps looping. That's kind of nice. Playing once is usually what you want on the internet, so you're not driving your audience crazy when they're done. But sometimes it's cool to let it loop if there's a long pause. So the text is just there for a while. And then it starts looping. Waits. How long is a good pause? At least 2 seconds, in my opinion. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It's not even that long. 3 seconds would be better. That's around 70 frames. So here I am at 100. I'm going to go all the way out to 170. 72 frames is exactly 3 seconds, but nobody's counting. So I'm just going to add 70. I happen to be on frame 100. It made my math a little easy. Sorry, I'm getting a little punchy. There we go. I'm using the scroll bar at the bottom of the timeline. There we go. And I'm going to F5 each layer. They each arrived already. So these F5s are just a long pause. The playhead is going to have to go through all these non-interesting frames before it could loop. So what I've just created is a couple second delay. John Lennon fades in, and then there's no action, just a bunch of timeline. I'm going to save this. I don't want to show that to you. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 3 second pause. And it didn't feel very long, I should add. Look, I just want to check my chat. Give me a minute. Any questions yet? No. So, at this stage, we took stuff we've done before. I added a little variation. Things are not all moving in the same pattern. They're not all doing alpha. I think I do want to repeat that one thing, but I just want to be clear. None of these are rules you have to do every time. I only have John Lennon fading in. The others are sliding or moving like an elbow, but they're not fading in. If I want them to fade in, I'm going to go to the first keyframe for each object and set my alpha to 0. So I'm going to repeat it. It does look really good. So I'm starting at the top. Here is, let me just back so you can see. Here's my first keyframe. So always to do alpha, as I was saying only moments ago, click the keyframe first so it knows when. Click the artwork so it knows you're talking about art. Then you can come to the color effects. I'm looking for, this does not look straight. There we go. I'm going to leave it. Set this to alpha. Put alpha any amount you want. I'm going to set it to 0. If you wanted to do that on everything, go to the next layer. We're talking about the first keyframe. Click the keyframe. Click the artwork. Then color effect shows up. Alpha. Just turn that off, sorry. I'm on the next layer. Piece is really small. I'm not going to get a lot of action out of that fade, but I could do it. I'd click the keyframe, click the text, same routine. Alpha, 0. And I'm working my way down. So this is a chance. So I'm going to click on that. I want to say something quickly though. The good thing about knowing how to use alpha is that means you also know how to use tint or brightness. Sometimes all that alpha gets boring. If you click a keyframe, then click the artwork, color effects offers you a list of cool options. So I'm going to use this a chance to take a chance. So here's the first keyframe. I clicked it. Here's the artwork. I clicked it. No, I didn't. There I go. I clicked it. And here's color effects. I'm going to try brightness because I never mentioned it before. Give me 1 second because my battery's going dead, but I'm ready for it. There we go. Today. All right. So I click the keyframe, I click the artwork, and I see what there is, color effects. We did alpha, we did tint the other day, and I'd like to come back to it, but we haven't done brightness. Brightness really just means how dark or light. So to the left is going to make it darker. So it fades in like this. Turns blue. Didn't get a lot out of that. So I can click the keyframe, click the artwork, try something else. I could drag it to the right. It's very, very light. I think I'll get more out of it because it's so different than the final color. And it comes in, arrives at its actual color. The rules for alpha, tint, and brightness are essentially the same. Find a keyframe by clicking it, click the artwork once, and then simply make your choice from here. I want to save mine and get a peek before I go further. I'm going to save it. I have enough time to include something that I sort of promised I would, so I want to do it, which is how would I get a photo in there? Now, turns out you're the right crowd for this because we talked a lot about how to get legal photos. We talked a lot about how to size those photos, right? So I'm going to need both those skills if I want to put something behind this. But what I need most is a good idea. Do I want to say something about background photos behind text? It's generally an error to choose a photo that features an object as background text. You want something more environmental. If you put a shark in the middle of an image and then put text on it, the actual text is going to hide parts of the shark, and parts of the shark are going to interfere with the text. But I could just do blue water, right? So you really want to think that way. What really would behave as a background? Now, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to go to my browser, and I'm going to go to Google Images. A second here. Actually, first I'm going to search something. So I think I'm going to go with sky because there's lots of peaceful pictures of sky. I'm going to go to the image link, and I'm going to be a good boy and make sure that it's legal and that it's big enough. So here are my images. But in class, we kept coming over to tools, clicking tools so that I could check my size and my usage rights. I'm going to go to usage rights first. Searched it, went to images, click tools. Usage rights. So we did this at the beginning of early in the semester anyway. And I'm going to say Creative Commons licenses. They keep changing this feature, so it's driving me crazy, right? I'm just going to use it as is. Creative Commons licenses are pretty cool. I'm going to go to size here. And, frankly, the stage I'm using is 640 by 480. So if I want an image, it's got to be at least 640 by 480. And I hate this feature. It's really hard to use. And I don't want to make a big speech about it, so I want to keep it simple. Go to large. Chances are it's bigger than you need. So I chose Creative Commons licenses from here for usage. I chose large from here. We don't really have time for lengthy Photoshop, so I think this is going to go well. This isn't interesting enough, but it sure looked good behind my text. These are more interesting, but I'm worried about the white clouds under white text. I'm trying to find something that's got it just right. I'm going to try this one. The only problem that comes up in this case, as we mentioned back when we were doing Photoshop, is which of these companies are easy to download from. All the wiki ones are. PX here, I honestly don't remember if I like it or not. Let me take a fast look. I just want to see if it's one of the tricky websites or if it's easy to download. This looks pretty easy, right? So all I know, I'm looking at these numbers here, and I need anything bigger than 640 by 480. Oh, I hate that. It is one of those websites. They conned me. I lost. Go away. All right, I'm going to go back to Wiki. They're easy. This looks good. Click this one. Wiki often offers me more sizes right under the image. This happens to be the exact size I'm using. Wow, that's easy. But I want to be a good teacher, and I want to remind people about the crop tool. So I'm going to use this one. I'm going to skip this because it's too easy. Can you believe it? When I finally choose it, I better download it. Save image as. I really cannot review this, right? We spent a lot of time in the Photoshop section, and I think a lot of you are comfortable with it. If you're not, you might want to not use this. It's just one idea. I'm saving this photo to today's folder so I don't get lost. And now I want to get to my photo and open it. I meant to keep that folder open. but here it is. Since mine is too big, right, which is usually the situation, you don't usually get lucky and find a perfect document. I have to prepare it in Photoshop. It wouldn't break it if you just brought it in to animate. So if you don't have Photoshop, you can do that. I'm going to get my crop tool. I come to the top and make sure I'm in this feature, width by height by resolution. I hope some people remember that. And I'm going to go with my stage size. I set it to 640 pixels by 480 pixels. I'm going to use a resolution of 72. That's Animate's resolution. And I'm going to keep it. You know, I could choose a little less, but I'm okay with it the way that it is. So I'm going to hit return to crop it twice if necessary, and I'm going to resave it. Look, I know that's kind of quick, but this late in the semester, I want to respect the people who really sunk their teeth in deep to this and not keep going over something that we hit really hard. We did Photoshop for a couple of weeks, and I used that tool almost every class. We needed it that often. We were coming out of the web at that time, you know. So I could have just gotten a big photo and dropped it on the stage. It might have looked great, you know, as long as it wasn't too small. I could have skipped Photoshop. All right. But once you have an image and you just want to see if it works, first step is to get it into the library. And you do that by going to the File menu in Animate. File menu, Import. Import to library is a really important feature. Animators who use this program use this a lot. They'll bring in artwork from Illustrator and photos from Photoshop and music from music programs, even video. File menu, Import, Import to library. And I find my photo. And open it. Remember, I just put it in the library, so I have to go to the library to see if it's there. To use it, I'd make a layer so it doesn't break my animation, right? And drag it out of the library. So I'm going to make a layer now. I'm going to rename it. I double click the layer name. I'm going to call it background. And I better drag it to the bottom so I don't hide my text underneath. All right, here it goes. I'm going to drag it out. I think I want to point out that only works because there's a default keyframe. Every time you make a layer, there's a keyframe already. So all I have to do now is drag it out. I got lucky with most of my colors. I still kind of like them. You know, some of them I don't like so much with this background, and I can always go back and fix it. Like the word peace, for example, is rather dark. So I'm going to drag my playhead over, and I'm trying to locate the keyframe with the trouble. Here comes the word peace. And it's here that it's dark. It's a symbol, so I can't change the color from here. I click the keyframe, click the artwork, and I'm going to go to color effects. Do I want brightness? I think I do. Or I might want tint. I'm going to try brightness. See how that worked. I'm happy with it. Any questions for me?
Professor,
Yes.
would you mind to do that elbow transition like all we are seeing again?
Sure. How about, yeah, why not? Okay. Alpha specifically?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to show you something about alpha. I'm just going to add something to make my point. Let me just think what I want to add. I think I'm going to just put something like a line down here and have it fade in. So I'm not sure I'm going to like it, but I'm going to try that. So I'm going to make a new layer for this demonstration. And I'm going to drag it down because I'm going to put that line under this set of words. And I'm going to rename it so I don't get lost later. I'm going to call it line. And here I am. It's got a blank keyframe. The only problem is, I think I'm going to bring my playhead over so I could see something. I want to show you something kind of weird. If I draw on this layer now, right now, it won't go here, the drawing, because there's no keyframe. If there's no keyframe, it's going to go to the last keyframe it can find. This is a new layer. So the only keyframe is in frame 1. And the only reason I'm going to do this odd maneuver is so I could see this word. Because if I go back to frame 1, which is what I prefer to do, I'd be guessing. Where are my words? I think I'm going to try it that way. At least I could see it, but I'm on the correct layer, so I don't have to worry too much. And I'm going to make a line out of a box. Let me let that person in. Okay. So as I said, since I don't have a keyframe way down here, it went back to frame 1 anyway. There it is. All right. To work with it, I have to make it a symbol. So I select it, make it a symbol, just like text. And I turn on the tweening. Now, if I don't like the timing, I could drag it over just like we did with the text. And honestly, I don't like the timing because I want it to fade in about now. All right. So here's my artwork. It's made into a symbol, right? I have to turn on my tweening next, just like text. I'm going to give it a 15 frame period to work on, just like the text. So here I am in frame 60. I'm going to come out to 75 and F6 it. So just like text, I've got 2 keyframes with a tween turned on, and I'm going to come back to the first one. The question was about alpha. So once you've got multiple keyframes, you could pick the one that should be transparent. In the way we're doing it, it's usually the first one. And I click it, click the keyframe, click the artwork. Keep saying that. Click the keyframe, then click the artwork. Then you'll see this. But if you only click the keyframe, you don't. Where'd my color effects go? Because I also have to click the work. All right, here's alpha set to 0. That helps?
Sorry, Professor, I might express wrong. I want to learn again about the elbow, like turn straight to the level.
Like
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Listen, I'm going to show this to you differently. Let me just save this. It's a good question. I'm just going to open something fast. So it doesn't matter if it's art or if it's a word. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a symbol. I'm going to turn on the tweening. And I'm going to choose how long it should take. And F6 it there. So this is my finished word now, and this is the one that I want to look different. I'm going to get this tool here, and I want to show you something about it. This tool rotates easily, but the problem is it always rotates from the middle, like an old-fashioned record. This is the free transform tool. But I could take this, and it acts like a hinge, and put it right here. The only issue is, if I'm going to move it, I should move it on the later keyframe also. So I'm going to the second keyframe, and I'm also moving it. And I want to repeat, it's only this tool that lets me do this. Now, they both have a hinge in the same place, you know, like a door has a hinge. So I could go back to this one and simply rotate it. And the reason that's going to work is because the hinge is here and it's in the same spot here, right? It's on the left. It just moves, like I said, like an elbow. Did that help?
Yes, I just missed one step. So
It's
yeah.
always like that. It's always
Thank
one.
you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? Any special requests or anything you're kind of curious about? No? So, you know, I think I want to just say one last thing just as an idea. If I was going to go on with more John Lennon quotes, right? I'm going to do this very fast, right? I'm not going to go over this step by step. One thing I'd have to do is figure out, how do I get rid of this text before the next text appears, right? So I could take some of the logic that we've tried and just do it in a different order. So right here, it plays out and it's ended by a long pause. Let's wait there. So here we are in the pause now, right? Nothing really happened for the last 2 or 3 seconds, right? If I want something to happen from here, I could put keyframes toward the end. So I'm going to actually do that for every object. I'm coming a few frames early, and I'm going to F6 each one of these. And this is going to act like an anchor. It's saying, like, do nothing up to here. The photo is a different game. I'm going to leave it alone. So here they are. Here are these. Now, this didn't change anything, but what I could do is add a partner. So I have another pair for each, you know, 2 keyframes. So I'm going to put near these another F6. So each layer is copying its artwork. I have a new pair. So I'm going to reverse the logic. The pause is going to end here. And then in these few frames, I'm going to have everybody leave. So this time, it's the end frames that are going to change. I could set them all to alpha 0. I can have them leave the stage. Oops, I'm going to grab that. So notice I'm on the second keyframe for each of these. Second keyframe because I'm on the way out. Just food for thought, you know. Let's see how that went. And that's all right, but I want to show you something better. I'm trying to scatter it. So the first one leaves the stage first. The next one a little later. Each one's a little later. I don't want artwork disappearing, however, so I'm going to neaten up with F5s at the very, very end. Create this sort of wall. It really wouldn't matter too much, to tell you the truth. In this particular case, I want to just make a small point. These guys are off stage, so it really doesn't matter if they're not F5'd here. You know, they're going to be off stage anyway. This is what that produced. Did you see the difference? Instead of them moving like one unit, they take turns. I just want to point out what the main theory was. To make them leave, I needed a new 2 keyframes each. In this case, the first keyframe anchored it, so the end of the pause stayed where you left it, each one. I only wanted it to move in a short frame of time, so I followed them with like 6, 7 frames, F6, F6, F6. So I had this little unit of time for each of them. I took the end frame and dragged them all off stage. The only reason I didn't like it is all the lines just went bleh, and it felt kind of clumsy after all this effort to give them separate personalities. Bleh. So after that, I took the sets and said, okay, you wait a little. You wait a little longer, even longer. So it got this sort of staircase look. All right, folks, I just want to look at the handout, make some closing comments, and I'm going to stick around a little bit after class, but give me a minute here. So here's the plan, right? Depending on how far you're going to go with this, you know, you're like determined you want an A. You're not going to be able to, you shouldn't have finished it just now unless you're Michelangelo of animation. You know, it's possible. It is possible. In which case you could just give it to me and skip next class on Tuesday. Just check the handout to see if there's any announcements. Next Tuesday is going to be an assisted lab. I don't think I'm going to go step by step. We'll see, right? So if anyone got here late for any reason, you know, internet problems or whatever, you be sure to watch this video, right? Go to YouTube, right? Don't come in next time because this is literally the 3rd time I've taught this and ask me how to get started. That would be asking for a lot. I'll probably just tell you to watch the video. All you guys are here, right? So you guys don't have to worry about it. I had a number of late people today. I think it was internet problems. So I'm defending them. So again, it's all on video. Next Tuesday, assisted lab. The teacher is here just to watch, ask questions while you work. I'll let you guys screen share if you want to show me what you have and ask for advice, ideas on any level, technical, artistic, anything. That would be next Tuesday. Now, the project, let's just get a quick look here. This is the 3rd. We've just been talking about Tuesday, the 8th, right? So that's going to be the in-class lab, similar to today, a little looser. It's due on the 10th. I'm not announcing yet what I intend to teach on the 10th, but it's not going to be this. That's the official last day of class. So again, if you don't come Tuesday because you've already done your work and submitted it to Google Drive, I understand, I'll mark you present. I'm going to treat it that way. Come unless your work is done. Only if your work is done can you take that day off, right? Check the handout for any important announcements. That's on you. Then this will be the last class. At that point, I'll let you know whether I'm going to throw in an extra voluntary class during exam week or not. If I do, it's going to be on the 15th. So right now, just concern yourself with Tuesday. Come, if you want to work with me, you know, polish your artwork, right? Unless you're sure you're done. Other than that, I'll see you next Thursday. Does anybody have any questions about our schedule? So, you know, I got a request to spend some time with somebody, and he's been requesting quite a bit of time lately, which I'm always glad to share because so few people have questions, right? But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the class right now. I'm taking attendance again, right? If you have any questions for me, he'll wait, being the gentleman that he is. Does anybody have any questions you want to ask me about at all right now? I'll even check my chats if you're more comfortable with that. No, you sure? Excellent, I guess. Not that I mind questions, but I like to assume that means you're so deep in, with comprehension, which is probably the case. So folks, listen, if you do develop questions, right, there's always email or next class. So guys, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody then, unless there are last questions. After the last. Otherwise, I'll see you all Tuesday. And good to see you again. Oh yeah,
Nice.
you told me, right? You told me that you, right?
I like it better.
Tuesday. It's a Tuesday issue. I got it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be. Listen, you know what? You've rocked this class. Yeah, you really have. I'm not worried about you.
I'm not too worried. I would rather be, in the Zoom, but
I know you would be. I understand that. So at least you make the most of every time you are here. So I respect that. Anybody else? Nothing? In that case, I'll see you all. Chris, hang out a little bit. I'll see the rest of you guys next class. See you guys. Chris, I'm waiting for you. I told you.
Take care.
See you, Brandon. See you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Professor.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya, everybody. See you guys. Yeah, so Chris, is this about, yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so this is basically about the next project that you told me to do after the midterm.
Yeah, I want to ask you, so do you think you could do the video?
I could, but can I get a like help with like a head start? If
I
that's
don't think
possible.
that's fair to ask me at this date. I really got to tell you, it's old. So what I'm going to tell you to do is this. Watch this, because this is the best I think I could offer you. And I think it's good too, because it's not that long. I think this is what I would do. On today's handout. Hey, Chris, have you watched any of the YouTube videos?
Yeah, actually, that's how I did the midterm. I used YouTube for examples.
So I would do that. Here is the video link. And the one that we're talking about is 19. So here it is.
So frankly, if there were 50 clips that you were
Oh,
working with,
tell this guy to be quiet. There we go. Oh my God, I look like one of those criminals in a, the witness protection program. I should, this is before here he goes. He's fixing the light. Oh man. So that's what I would do. Watch a little of this to help you get started.
Yep.
I'm literally going over the project exactly.
Okay.
All right. So, I'd like to help you, but you're really kind of asking for a lot. It's a very large subject, right?
Yeah.
So what I would say is this, though. You will have to go here, but also, hang on a second here. The usual website.
Yeah.
I would definitely take a look at the Class 19 handout to go with it. Because really, mostly what you need are the assets.
Yeah. I have the assets already.
You have them already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch some of the video till you feel warmed up and then just get started.
Okay.
If you have questions after that, let me know.
Okay.
All right.
It was really just to know where to find the YouTube video, because I couldn't find this one that you just showed me, and I was having trouble finding it. So
Yeah, really all you need is the number. As long as the address is the same
yeah.
every week. So anywhere it mentions the video, here they are video. So here it is on an old one. It's the same exact link, as long as you know the number, which is 19. Class 19 handout, class 19 assets, class 19 video. Yeah, Chris, I hope you don't mind. It's just I repeat this stuff so many times.
I know, it's fine.
I can't get myself to do it again.
Yeah.
All right. So keep me posted, though. I'm
Okay.
definitely on your side. All right. I'll see you
Thank you.
next class.
Yeah.
You got it, Chris. Kevin, are you actually there, or is that just a box with your name on it? I suspected as much. Goodbye, YouTube.